Hello and welcome to the Hobby Hoarders podcast. I am Sam, your host, and I am joined by this meaty, mighty man who's still eligible if anyone's interested, Matt Geary.
Bite ye.
How have you been getting on, Matt? What hobbying have you done since last time?
Ooh, bar living like a hermit.
It's not the first question we always start with.
Yeah, bar living like a hermit because, as much as you see lights on here and everything looks very pretty and things like that, I've just been living with my lights off and the heating off because it's too expensive to heat and light yourself these days. I went to a gig and they had loads of lights and it was great because I could, there was lights, there was lights everywhere. But yes, I
swear someone at my work is literally going in to shower at work just so they don't have to pay for the energy at home.
Yeah. I would if it weren't for the fact it cost me a small fortune to get into the office on a regular basis.
That's fair.
So yeah, I've gamed quite a lot. Apart from my brother kicking my ass at Age of Empires Online quite regularly, which is becoming more frustrating as it goes along. But we have the Blood Bowl League, which is nice. Carrying on. I watched some of the games. I went down the Element and just watched some friends play. I even played some friendlies with a couple of my mates. I've got a match.
There you go, people. If you want to come and meet the world-faced Hobby Hoarders podcast, Matt Geary, you can get down to Element Games.
Yeah, so we got one on the 27th, which is the next Tuesday. I think we're gonna have our second match against vampires, which is going to be interesting. I've put a bit of a mark on one of my players. He's got quite a lot of traits now already, and he's scored a lot, and so everybody's gunning for him now. It's called Sure Hands McGee, and everybody's sort of going insisting that they're going to kill him, which is upsetting me because I don't want any of my characters to die. But apart from that, I played the Game of Thrones board game for the first time ever. And I didn't hate it, and we didn't fall out with anybody. So there's a guy called Jake and his brother called Kieran, who I met at Element. I was waiting for my mate to turn up to play Blood Bowl, and they were playing War of the Ring, the board game. The sort of kind of
paper mat with all the hexagons.
No, it's like. It's like a risk type game, sort of strategy game where you're basically either the Free Peoples or Mordor, and you've got to sort of stave off the Mordor's advances before and get the ring to Mordor and stuff like that. And it's quite a long game, and they were sitting there playing this, both of them, and I didn't realize they were brothers. And I just walked over and sort of was like sitting there having a little shifty, and I was talking to them about big board games, and they were saying, oh yeah, they love big board games, long ones. And I was like, oh, you got to play Axis and Allies Global, it's huge, it's going to take you about 16 hours plus, but it's amazing, it's one of the best board games ever and stuff. I finished the article, by the way, Sam. It's done. Finished it.
Oh, very good. Very good. We'll need the link in the chat.
I haven't published it yet because I was going to maybe do a video to go along with it, but yeah, it's done. The article's written. But anyway, so I was talking to them about that, and afterwards the guy just said, can I have your number? It's like, because they want to play some games. And last week, they invited me down with a bunch of their mates to play the Game of Thrones board game. Now, in my mind, I thought this was going to take a long time, which doesn't bother me, but I was of the impression, because there's no dice as well, it's not dice, it's literally card mechanics, and there's little meeples, and I'm not very keen on meeples in war games and stuff. They sort of annoy me. It's very sort of Euro games have meeples, war games have miniatures, but anyway, so I was always a bit
keep the cost down, you horrible gatekeeper. Like, if you were to play someone at a tournament and they brought paper stand-ins for their models, would you not play them?
No, I wouldn't. Do you know what? I've played a guy who used rubber ducks as toy riptides once. He had Huey doing.
And did he do it properly on the correct base size?
Oh yeah, he had the base. He just stuck them on the base, and so it was just hilarious. But yes, I'm not that sort of guy. But anyway, so yeah, I played this game, and it only took about just under 2 hours, and two, as much as there wasn't really as much falling out as I thought there would be, because it's literally a case of everybody guns for the guy who's got the most castles, and basically because it goes quite quickly, and because you have to sort of get as many keeps as possible, there's no real time to have any sort of kind of like, hey, tell you what, if you do this, we'll do this. There is a little bit like the guy who was the Starks. I played the Iron. Ironically, I played the Ironborn and stuff in it and stuff. I played the Ironborn, and
for anyone that doesn't know, I play the Ironborn in all of our games of the miniature by Cool Mini or Not.
Yeah,
and your boy is the Starks.
Oh, he's the Starks. So I was I called the Starks at the start, but then obviously it wasn't fair, so we drew them randomly, and I got the Ironborn. And he attacked me pretty much straight away, and I was like, "Is this how it's going to be?" So I spent most of my time just scuppering him. Like, it wasn't any sort of, there was no sort of like, I'm going to win this game. It was just like,
how many players were there?
There was 5 of us, and it was
is it the odd numbers that it starts to become messy, I find, especially if Dorn's in play and there's not a player playing Dorn, because that can kind of just get taken.
Yeah, but Dorn, yeah, exactly. Well, that's happened. The guys, the Baratheon player, he basically just walked into Dorn and sort of started taking over sort of areas, so that gave him a bit of an advantage. The guy who's playing Highgarden, yeah, Tim, he sort of kind of had
Highgarden and Lannisters normally smash into each other. Well, the thing is, Lannisters,
it was me, the Lannisters, the Starks, and the Ironborn were the ones who were sort of kind of getting on. So basically, initially, the guy Jake was the Lannisters, and he did a bit of he did a raid token on my thing to stop me from doing something. I was like, how could you have done that, man? And then the Starks attacked me, but then they attacked him, and so I was just like, look, we've had our differences and stuff, maybe we should do this and stuff, and that was our only sort of kind of slight diplomacy. It was basically to stop him from doing anything, but because we were all us three were sort of kind of fighting amongst ourselves, Highgarden was the only one who could deal with the Baratheons, and it didn't end very well and stuff. So it wasn't a bad, the Baratheons one, and it wasn't too bad. The mechanics, actually, and this is bad because I like rolling dice, but it was good because you have basically, if you've not played it before, combat isn't like, you have minimal amount of miniatures, you have little tokens you put down. The tokens are either you can
infantry worth 1, cavalry worth 2, siege towers are worth 0 unless you're fighting a castle. Castles are worth 2, I want to say.
No, so it's 1, 2, and 4, but they attack on 4s, they defend on 0s and stuff. So it's
the castle gives a defense, doesn't it? Does it not have a defense?
I'm not sure
there's an interesting mechanic as well, isn't there, about fighting? Because just because you win with more strength than your opponent doesn't mean you kill anything.
Oh yeah.
Instead, you have to have sword tokens on your commander cards, and your opponent can have tower tokens on their commander cards, which actually dictates whether anything dies.
Yeah, which is it's a good sort of mechanic, because your guys don't, just because you lose a battle doesn't mean you lose the army and stuff. But invariably, people have like daggers or swords on their card, and you can have the sword. The token, basically you bet on where you are. You can either have the Iron Throne, that's the reason the Baratheons won quite a lot, because every time it came to a tie, because of the bidding, he was just like, well, me, basically. And because he was always bidding high on everybody was like, we don't need the Iron Throne, we'll go for the other ones because they're more interesting. And he was just keeping that. And every time there was a thing, me. And so he was just winning out all the time. So we realized this too late, but that sort of was a good thing to have. But yeah, it was good. So you just have lots of little tokens, you put them down. Some have benefits, some have negatives. Depending on where you are in the muster sheet and stuff, you can put more of the ones with like stars on them, which give you slightly more to it. And the cards are good because once you've used it, you can't use it again until all the other cards are good. So if you use your most powerful card at the start, then that's it, done. And so the guy who hit me first, he used his 4 straight away and won. And then I was just like, okay. So I backed off, built up a bit, and I knew when I attacked him that he couldn't beat me because I would have the 4 left, and so I did. I used the 4, and I beat him and stuff. And so it was.
I really like the Ironborn because you can attack anywhere. Like they're because they're on the coast. The ship lines are up and down, and ship lines in that game are really important for moving troops because you can move through ships. So you can move an army from one side of the board to the other side of the board in an instant where everyone else is slopping it.
Yeah, so it was it was a good game. Quite enjoyed it. Can't say it's my favoritist game of the time, but for a short sort of strategy game, it's not as daunting.
For everyone, the reason I'm chuckling, short, it was still like a 2-3 hour game, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, but short. Bear in mind, Sam, when it comes to those sort of games, I'm expecting at least sort of 10 hours plus, and if I don't get that, then it's it's not worth it. I'm just
what was the point?
Yeah, what's the point? But so it was enjoyable. It was a good game. Nobody really fell out. There was a lot of like, oh, how dare you? But it wasn't like because it's not that long. There is no building up. Because everybody has to do things quickly, and everybody's very much a case of we need to deal with this person or else that's it. There's no real, you can't really hold a grudge. It's not like sort of like, you said you would do this because, well, you haven't got time to build up that sort of that alliance effectively. If it was a longer game and, suddenly after 3 or 4 turns somebody turned on you and stuff for no apparent reason, and then you would get pissed off. But yeah, it's because it's fast paced. It's a bit, well, I say fast paced. It's fast paced for that sort of game. And yeah, I quite like that. I quite like the bidding system. It's sort of similar to a game Medieval Universalis, which has a bidding system, and I quite like that sort of instead of having initiatives and stuff like that, you're basically paying or risking certain things to sort of give yourself position and stuff. You'd
enjoy Rising Sun by Cool Mini or not? It has a lot of the same mechanics. Was that one by Cool Mini or not?
Yes, it is. Remember. Yeah, it is. One of the guys from Geek Pride did a review of it. Looked like the minis look really good. Really good and stuff.
Sorry, I mean, was the Game of Thrones one by Cool Mini or not?
No. Game of Thrones is a Fantasy Flight. Game of Thrones is Fantasy Flight. Okay. Yeah, Fantasy Flight.
One of the things is people deride Fantasy Flight, but occasionally they come out with an absolute banger.
Fantasy Flight are the reason my wallet is so empty and stuff. They have, a lot of very good games and stuff, so it's quite hard.
Are they Star Wars Legion?
Yes, Star Wars. Well, obviously there's a new. I think there's a new sort of side company. I'm not sure who's taken on these things from Fantasy Flight. So all the miniature type games have been taken on by somebody else who aren't Fantasy Flight. I'm gonna have to Google this now because it's obviously important. So
vitally important.
Yeah. Who took over Legion from Flight? Automatic Mass Games taking over. Yeah, so
was that recently? Did they buy the IP out?
Well, no, it's just that I think I'm not 100% sure what the score is, but basically Fantasy Flight are going to just focus on board games now. Miniature games like all the Star Wars stuff they have. That's why you're not going to get a lot of more Armada stuff anymore. X-Wings, X-Wings on its 3rd edition now, I think, and stuff like that. People are just like getting really fed up with the fact that it's getting changed so much. Like I'm still on 5th. I was going to go for 2nd edition and just went, you know what, I don't play it enough. I like the miniatures and stuff, they're really good, and if I really want to play it, I'll play 1st edition. It wasn't, it's not so broken that
you've got enough for both players.
Yeah, it's sort of gonna not play it, and Armada is an amazing game. I'd still sort of maybe buy some of those miniatures if I had the money, but that
big Star Destroyer behind you, that's coming to me soon, I can just tell.
Man, it might have to be sold. This is the bad thing. All this is for sale. It's just like, pay for my bloody electricity bill. Yeah, so they've been taken over by Atomic Mass Games. So they're just looking at
Atomic Mass, they're the guys behind Marvel Crisis Protocol.
Yes, so they're taking on all the sort of kind of miniature games for them. So Fantasy Flight are just focusing on their board games, I think.
Wow.
So yeah, that's it. So I've been played some Blood Bowl, got our Blood Bowl League. I do updated news. We've really taken to playing on Tabletop Simulator as well. For my brother plays over that because he can't play in person. and that's been really good. And I've been really enjoying watching matches and sort of talking about it. It's quite an engaging game. I can see why people like.
There's a league that plays as well. If you want another league that's not that far away from you.
What's that? Say it again.
There's another Blood Bowl league in Glossop.
Oh,
so not that far away from you. If you want to do 2 leagues.
I've got the thing is, man. Like, so this is like, so I've got podcasts on Monday, podcast every other Wednesday with you. I've got my own Blood Bowl matches on every week, and then I've got Dungeons and Dragons on Thursdays. So I'm just sort of.
Sounds like you got a Saturday free. Saturdays.
Yeah. Well, exactly. We are meant to be playing some games this Friday, Sam, aren't we? So.
Dun, 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 dun. We still on for that?
Yeah, I'm good for Friday. Yeah,
what are we playing? Have we decided?
I feel like we should play a Song of Ice and Fire because we haven't played it in ages, and it is an awesome game. It's just we're not. You know.
I'm not fussed. Yeah. I can bring Song of Ice. I mean, if I list out all the games I can bring, we're going to be here all night. Yeah. I still want to play more. But you're not really into ship battles, are you? Man of War, that sort of thing.
I'll give them a go, man. It's not, I'll give them a go. I wouldn't mind.
We've got 2 fleets for that painted. It's the adaptation. So it's called Black Sails by Warlord, who make great games anyway.
Yeah.
But Mantic bought like a semi-license to make a fantasy version, and
right.
so it's like you have ships that are like reavers, like dark elves, or you have ships that are like orcs that are big, like nailed together things. It's a good game.
I'd love to. Like, I always want like. Ages ago, we all bought Dystopian Wars stuff, which I really wanted to play. I've got a British fleet somewhere, a Britannic fleet somewhere, but nobody really sort of got it, so I wouldn't mind playing some like ship stuff. Also, Sam, I started making some of my French epic. If by Friday I can make some more of my French infantry and cavalry from Epic Battles Waterloo, we could try an introductory game to that.
And then I'm going to do a flashback. Matt, have you read the rules yet?
No, we're going to learn.
There's a reference to a previous podcast where Matt admitted that he had someone to play with. He had someone who would happily play his Historics, but Mr. Matt Geary never read the rules. Send me over a PDF if there's a PDF copy of the rules, and I will read the rules.
Good. Sounds good to me.
Wait, hang on. Does that mean I have to be the French?
You can be if you can be British if you want. I'll be the French.
I want to be the Highlanders.
Yeah, I have built the Highlanders. I've built
focus on the French. Yeah. Get the French built. Get enough for. Wait, we're not playing the Battle of Waterloo. Just a standard small point game. We can bring a couple of miniature things with us.
Well, okay.
I'm not for the first game paying 10,000 points. I'd rather play an introductory game. I don't even know what the point system is.
Okay. I've also got Prussians and stuff. So. But they haven't been started building yet.
Oh, I'd play the Prussians.
Yeah.
But you started building the French.
I started building the French. I was building them while I was watching the last Blood Bowl game and stuff, so I started building. It's the annoying thing.
Did you manage to get anyone to play with you a couple of weeks ago when you posted in the group?
No.
It was just too short notice.
No, because thankfully, my mate who was playing my other mate, one of them didn't turn up, so my mate Marsden turned around and said, do you want a friendly instead? So I was like, yeah, okay. Well, so I just played Blood Bowl. I played Blood Bowl with him. Though I did get a random message on Facebook, me being tagged about playing games with this guy, and it turned up yesterday, and I messaged him and like, hey man, I'm happy to play games and stuff. And then I realized it was from like 4 days ago. So I think he'd replied and it hadn't sort of shown up on my my things and stuff. So apparently he turned up. Apparently he was there, and I didn't realize. But yeah.
That wasn't Dan. That wasn't the guy I tagged you with.
No, I don't think it wasn't Dan. I don't think somebody else. But yeah, so it was just like, he said he turned up and then left. And then left, and I was just like, oh shit, and they apparently bought games with him. I was like, well, I didn't realize. See, no, he didn't come up to me and go, hey man, whatever and stuff. I was just like oblivious, and it did turn up on my Facebook and stuff. Yeah. So I was like,
I had problems with WhatsApp the other day where I just wasn't getting any notifications for WhatsApp. Like, I only fixed it when my friend called me. I was like, are you okay? And I was like, I'm fine. He was like, I've been messaging you. I was like, I didn't see any of those. WhatsApp just turned off notifications. Yeah.
So I didn't get anything. The notification I did was 4 days old, and I only realized after he didn't reply to me, and then I looked at the thing and I went 4 days and I went, that's probably why. So I messaged him and he got back to me and he was just like, oh yeah, no, I did turn up and stuff, but then I sort of kind of I was wearing a like this and but I felt bad and I sort of kind of left. I was like, oh bad.
That's so tragic.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, I'll see if I've got time to build stuff. If not, just Song of Ice and Fire, I think would be it.
Cool. Otherwise, I might throw some models in a old carrier and bring some other models.
Yeah.
Right. What have I been up to? Well, I went to the there was a tabletop gaming expo over at the Victoria Mill, which is pretty cool. One of the things I got to do was, do you watch a channel called Bill Makes Things? Bill Making Things?
Rings a bell.
It's a great bit.
Does he make
enjoyable
things?
To watch. He does make things,
right.
Mainly rusty, old, monstery things from scratch. But that was cool. I got to meet him, and I got one of his cat badges, which if you watch it, you'll know who Cat is. If not, then you no idea who he is, which is fair. He's got about 50, 60,000 subscribers. So that's pretty cool. He lives down in Somerset. But I also went and got a bunch of swag. Swag bag. So first thing was, obviously, I had baby and wife with me. So bribery to keep them calm. So I got a cute little Triceratops and then a little Foxy. What does he say? Yum, 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 yum. Yeah.
What does the song, a fox say?
Yeah. Do you know what? Someone told me on one of my courses that all my jokes are outdated. So that was pretty brutal. This one, so we talked about Moonstone before. I like Moonstone. And this is a box of dice. And do you see what those dice look like? Do you see how they're sort of creamy and opaque?
Yes.
Yeah? So what colour would you assume the dice would be?
Creamy and opaque?
See-through blue. Now, don't get me wrong. That's my fault. I mean, quite clearly you can see what the dice are. But if you show in the packaging these dice, I expect these dice in the packet. So I'll take that on me. Fine, whatever.
Yeah, I did a similar thing today in that I bought like this sort of fence thing to stop Boz from standing up on the window ledge and chewing on my windowsills when his nemesis walked past. I was like, I'll buy this.
Doing all that work.
And then it turned up. It was tiny. It was just like, this is not going to stop him from getting past anything whatsoever. He could literally just put his paw over it and get sort of over it and stuff. And I was just like, should have paid more attention to the dimensions and stuff like that. But I saw it and went, that looks big. I'll buy that.
Oh, it's so frustrating, isn't it? It's like when you buy a sofa and it turns out it's like a doll sofa or a full-size IKEA sofa. So this was quite cool. So these are games. I don't know what you call them, RPGs, games in a book sort of thing. So what would you say, to pay for like a little game, how much would you say is a decent price? To pay for a little booklet, 12 pages, and it's a game, like a little RPG game. How much would you sort of pay for one of those?
For one of those, £1? £1?
See, I actually would have paid like £5. They were £3 each.
Okay, yeah.
So this one, you make a tarot deck. So it's cooperative, you all play together, and you make tarot decks where you're rolling dice and you're answering questions, and that determines what the tarot is. And at the end, you draw a tarot deck. So you might be, you have drawn the sad otter. This means that blah, 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 blah. So that's quite cool. This one's called Caltrop Kaiju.
Okay.
So there's a little map, and you draw on the maps what's on the maps. And then you have like little dinosaur figurine, and that's your kaiju, and you're trying to make the map to stop and slow the kaiju until it eventually runs away. So like Godzilla, so you like fight Godzilla.
Okay, that's cool.
This one is a little RPG where all of the monsters, after they've been in dungeons, seek therapy and go to retire. So like it's a little adventure about meeting them and like what their tragedies are and what happened to them and helping them get through their trauma of dealing with that. And then this one is the one that made me look at the stand. So it's called Bumbling. And basically what it is you have these little grids. And you roll dice, and that determines what's on the grid. So it might be a tree, it might be a mountain, it might be a rock, it might be a bit of grass, maybe farmland. And what you have to do is make a little path for your bee, and then eventually you have to try and fly backwards. And they were just such cute little games. So it was £10 for 4 games, And I love that. That's so accessible because people always talk about RPGs and they talk about how, oh, they're not that expensive. But see, when you actually go buy a Game Master book and a player's book and a monster book, and then you get your dice and everything, and at £3 a pop, I absolutely love this. They're created by someone called Yvris Burke, who's absolutely lovely. I met them at their stand, and it was just really sweet. And I was really, they're called, the company, Buttonkin Games, and you can buy off their website.
Oh, nice.
And
Yeah,
up
cool.
to the fourth one. I love the fact that they were doing something for the community in terms of trying to make something accessible and affordable.
Yeah, that looks cool.
This was another cool one. I think, like, certainly I'm a horror for it, and I think you are too. We always want board games, which are basically war games. We very rarely go for a game that's not like a war game. But this was another sweet game, and again, anything that I can get Claire to play is worth its weight in gold. And it's a colouring in game. It's a colouring in book game. So there's 3 different pads, and you see there's a grid reference. So you get your X coordinate and your Y coordinate. You roll 4 dice, and one of the dice has to be your X coordinate.
Yeah.
One of the dice has to be your Y coordinate, and one of the dice has to be your colour. And basically, if you get a frog of every colour, that's you can score 6 points. If you get a flower of every colour, that's 6 points. And for every flower and frog that you colour in that's a different colour to the one next to it, that's a point. And it's just a nice, simple dice game, but it's an entry game. It gets them playing these kinds of games. And it was also really fun, and it's just colouring in with crayons. And that was... So I've got all 3 different versions. Cute little bag, dice, crayons, and the rule book. How much do you think that was?
I don't know. £15?
£13. Yeah. It's just, again, when I think about how much we spend on Kickstarters, I mean, what is the most expensive Kickstarter? Well, no, that's a topic for later. That's a topic for later. But I just find that, like, stuff just creeps up and up and up, and it was just so nice to find these sweet little games. However, I have a slideshow. So, if I share this, is this going to break absolutely everything, or do you need to do something first?
No, if you share, hopefully it'll turn up.
Okay.
You share your screen.
Go live.
There you go. Move you.
Awesome sauce. So this was an interesting game. This guy I was chatting to, I'm not gonna lie, the game didn't blow me away, but it was nice chatting to the guy to just sort of see what was, the thought process behind designing a game. And it's pretty cool to see someone that's that brave. So the idea is you have your little discs. There are 2 sides to them. There are the edge sides and there's the smooth side. The edge side means you're at risk. The flat side means you're not. So you can see there we've got edge sides and we've got flat sides. So all you do is you roll the dice, and let's say I roll a 6. I can either kill his 6, unprotect his 6, or protect my 6. And so basically all you're trying to do is get all of their pieces flipped over and killed whilst protecting yours. At the end of the game, however many you've still got protected, you score points on, and however many you've killed, you score points on. So a very, very simple game. But it was nice just chatting to the guy to sort of see how the thought process of designing a game comes in.
Seen this game before, this one here.
The sticker one. So it's based off of Karom. Have you ever played the in-game game Karom?
Yeah.
I'm a wuss. Every time I flick the pieces, it kind of hurts my fingers.
Yeah.
It was quite funny because we were playing that one year at Claire's parents. Her dad's really into it. And it turned out the powder is not good for you. Not good at all. So we switched out for talcum powder. But this was basically an evolution of that. This was basically snooker, which was cool. This is the colouring in game. So you can see there, you can colour in the flowers, the balloons, or the one I held up, which was the frogs and flowers. So you roll the dice, do the grid reference. So that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that one. This was an interesting one. So the idea, the premises of it is it's promoting female scientists, sort of get the names out there.
Yeah.
Because you can hear it in the interview that I do, which I'm going to be uploading all of these to my shorts channel. But I didn't know who most of them were, and I get kind of called out on that. And she's basically, it's a really cool game. It's basically to promote the awareness of great women in science, which, as you could tell from my complete lack of knowledge, I definitely needed.
A woman who understands science,
you're
witchcraft.
I know. So basically, you've got your down the left-hand side, you can see there my character cards, and I've also got ability cards. And in the middle, you're in a library, and you can see there's a Minotaur, and there's a Beholder. So you'd have to go and fight them. So you can use an action for moving, an action for flipping tiles, and an action to draw tokens. So, for example, if I kill, you see the Basilisk there in green. To kill the Basilisk, I would need 2 yellow tokens and a green token, which I can either get from my characters or I can get from my items. And you just got to move around the map and do that. And it's a cooperative game, which immediately, as soon as I heard cooperative, I was like, nah. But it was a pretty fun game. It was good. It's coming to Kickstarter very soon. This one, let me rotate it. This one seemed more up your street. Where you could battle over England. So very simple. You use tokens and timelines. So basically, you could mess around with the timeline by pulling in troops from different eras.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty cool. Unfortunately, they were busy every time I walked past them. This was just a cool big dice.
I've seen that. I saw that when I was at UK Games Expo.
Very cool. This was Moonstone, which we've already talked about, which I will need to get you to play a game of it. I've actually booked myself in for a tournament on the 1st of October.
Okay.
So if any of our listeners are there, because basically I tend to do everything by fire. If I get into a game, I'll do a tournament as the first my learning games. I've read the rules. I'm good to go. I'll go and learn how to play at a tournament. I've done it before. I've done it 2 different games in 1 tournaments. So that technique tends to work. I mean, how different are war games really? And it was just a really nice board. And the cool thing about the board is that a bit at the back, if you remove the mountain, it was actually warrens underneath. So there was actually hidden boards within the board. So it was mines, and all these buildings had like cellars and stuff like that. It's a really cool board. So again, we've talked about the Moonstone before, but the aim of the game is your characters have health. That's the blue markers. Have energy. That's the blue markers, and then they've got health. So you might have tons of health, but not much energy. So the giants themselves have got very low energy, but really high health. When you're doing fighting with them, you've got your decks, and you have a deck of attack and defense actions you can do. So do I. We draw from that deck, and then you play something. But because there's a limited number of cards, there's 21 cards, if you draw 3 high attacks, you know that I can't possibly do a high attack.
No.
Same thing with Magic. There's that sort of bluffing element to it. No dice, which I quite like. You've also got to go around the map, and you see there little blue ones. That's what these dice come in. So you drop them on the board, and these are your objectives. Oh. If it's 4, it takes you 4 energy to get out of the ground. If it's 1, it takes you 1 energy to get out of the ground. So that's a pretty good game.
Cool.
This was cool, though. Have you ever seen this?
I saw this at UK Games Expo, but I didn't get to talk to the guy who was running it because he was busy. So, yeah, I'm interested to find out about it.
Yeah, so what it is they're trying to basically revolutionize gaming by introducing the element of your fighting, your measuring, etc. is all done by a machine. So it's kind of like, instead of playing on Tabletop Simulator, it's going the whole other way. They're based out of Birmingham, and their sort of model is they want to see how it does in Birmingham. You can rent the table, and the idea is they hope that you buy the miniatures, and all the miniatures have they've got chips in them.
Yes.
And those chips tell the game where they are on the board at any given time, and also for things like attacking and shooting. So you see this little control panel in the bottom left.
Yeah.
So all of the fighting is resolved by the thing itself. You might choose an attack, but everything else is done by that. So you can do magic. When you do like a magic spell that does an aura, it flashes out and ripples outwards, hitting all your models and lighting them up. When they do fighting, the sound plays, there's roaring, and then the hexes go red or green, depending on whether you've taken damage or if you've died. When you move, it traces the path and then shuts off your movement, so you can't take it back. So it's very cool. So that's their sort of idea, is they want to be a gaming centres that you go to, buy your booze, buy food, buy your models.
So you have to use their tables and stuff like that. It's not something, because the size of it, the way it is, it's not something that your average Joe could just have in their living room, basically.
Well, you might be able to, but basically their plan right now is this. But they have talked about it. They've talked about doing stuff like, how Dance Dance Revolution mats have been a thing for ages, and they have sensors in them. So they said that it is possible, But right now it's this. So they've got 10 big tables. You can link them together to do big campaigns. And the chips, because they're computer chips, they can actually store things like experience, damage. So the idea is you'll be able to play full campaigns with these characters, but all of it's recorded in the models themselves. So you'd be able to buy and sell models that were injured or had levels, etc. I have absolutely no idea how to feel about it. It was cool.
When does it sort of? It's like, when does it become a computer game though? It's like it's. I appreciate
Sky Raiders did this.
Random none. I like the idea of there being interactive stuff like this, but then it sort of takes away from the tangibility of it all. It's like it ceases to be something tangible because you're not, other than painting some models, it's doing everything for you. And
well, I mean, you do the movement and you choose when to do your spells and you choose who to attack, etc. Yeah, but I definitely want to go down one day. Like, if we want to just choose a day and just go down to Birmingham, my geography's terrible. I think it's like a 4-hour drive.
That's definitely not. It's not 4. It's not 4 hours from Manchester. It's only about 100 miles away. It only take us about 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours.
Yeah, 2.5 hours. Yeah, slightly less if traffic. So if we go to UK Games Expo, we're only about just under 2 hours probably. Stuff. So yeah, I'm all good to go down and try
it. And I'd love to make a video on it as well, all about the content, my friend. This one was nice. This is, again, I love talking to like indie developers. Like this is just a chat, and it's me who were like, we love board games. Let's make a board game. So it's about mining. And so you've got your deck. That rock is the challenge rating that you need to beat it. You roll your 2 dice. If you've got a pick, for example, it adds 2. So you see there, there's a 9 rolled. So 9 plus the 2 from your pickaxe. You break the rock. The rock either has some loot that you might get, or it has a peril. So you're trying to get as much gold nuggets as you can, represented by the little gold coins that you gather. Or it might be like a cave-in, and you've got to try and protect yourself. Just a fun little game. But again, the reason I loved it was because it's just, 2 lads. They're just giving it a right good go. I'll put links to all of them in the description below so you can check them out. But that's coming to Kickstarter soon. And again, lovely artwork. It's taken them several years to sort of pay for all the stuff. And I just think it's really nice that there's people out there trying it.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can do it, Matt, you have no excuse. There's a little close up of it.
Honestly, if I wanted to build my dream game, it would be a game that would cost me a small fortune. I would never sell one unit. It would just be the game that I build for myself, and it would be done because it would be like a campaigns of, or what's it called? Battle for North Africa. That game was meant to be notoriously like long and convoluted and stuff. I think that would probably be my game. It's like really long and convoluted, and nobody would want to buy it and stuff, bar me. But I'd do it if I had the money. If I had the money, I would probably have, if I won the lottery, I think that's one of my first things I would do. I would build my board game just because, I'd have my own gaming center, but then I'd have my own board game as well. But,
of course. Spend the big money first.
Yeah.
So it's called All Mine.
Yep.
And it's by Devilfly Games, and it's their first game, and that's coming to Kickstarter later this year.
Cool beans.
Have you seen Mortal's Reckoning?
That art looks familiar. Is it a miniature?
They are some of the nicest models I have ever seen. Absolutely incredible, all in resin. Now, I wish I could have just bought tons of models, because I kid you not. People always go about, what's it called? Monster, Kingdoms of Death Monster?
Yeah.
Whatever it's called. I personally am not a massive fan. A bit too much penis going on in all the models. But people always talk about how they're like the best quality miniatures ever. Now, that might have been true like 10 years ago. I don't know if it's true at all today. But these were genuinely some of the nicest models. The detail was so crisp on them. They're currently working on an RPG, and they've also considering, working on a miniatures game and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to see where they go from that.
Nice.
I've got tons and tons of photos of these guys, and I'll put them all up in my next video. Very cool. I mean, look at the detail on those.
Yeah, man, they're cool.
Oh, this was some painted ones as well. I was like, is that the price for the painted one? He was like, no. I was like, yeah, fair enough. But again, just really, really nice.
I love their little
watch
glass.
that space. They're definitely coming out soon.
Glass cabinets.
I love the little domes.
Yeah,
aren't they nice? This was just silly good fun. So we ended up upstairs, which is sort of where all of the, the silly family games were. This is not, this is Connect 4, but it's Connect 4 where
you can put stuff on top of each other's.
No. It's all the pieces. That's how the pieces look.
Yeah.
So you've got square pieces, circular pieces, hollow pieces, solid pieces, different height pieces, colors of the pieces. So there's like 7 different things that you can like connect 4 on. But the coolest thing is you choose your opponent's piece and they choose your piece. So I would choose, for example, the tall, creamy cylinder and give it to you, and you would place it on the board, and then you would choose a piece for me. So you constantly you're basically guaranteed that you're going to give your opponent the win, but you've got to try and work out like when to give them stuff and when not to give them stuff. It was pretty fun. I was playing against a guy dressed as a giant panda.
I've seen one similar, or it's like tic-tac-toe, but you have you'll have like these small things, sort of containers, and then you'll have medium ones and you have large ones, and you can place yours over theirs to sort of steal the spot. But if you use up all your bigger ones, then obviously they'll be able to sort of gazump you later on and stuff. So it was quite a good idea.
Well, this company, Dracchi, they were bringing all the French games over. So these are all games that exist in France that they're just bringing over. This one you can't buy at that size. Instead, you buy the smaller version.
Yeah.
Same pieces and same idea, but not in giant wooden blocks. And it was a lot of fun. And the guy, I was like, so he gave me a piece, and I was like, so if I put it here, I says, do I win? And he was like, oh, damn it, I didn't see that one. Because he warned me at the beginning. He told me, like, he said, just so you know, no hard feelings. I've played this so many times, you probably lose. And I was like, mate, you've just written your own death warrant there. But I was not playing. I was just placing the pieces, having a good time, and then just spotted that there was one that I could win on. I had absolutely no tactics. This was pretty. He compared it to something. So it's called Lang Skip. He didn't compare it to Munchkin, but my immediate head was that it was in Munchkin. Basically, when you're moving up the board, you see you got your points there. The idea is to get to the top. You can draw cards or discard cards, and depending on what cards you have in your hand, depends on what happens. So, for example, there, if you have Frigg, you get to move 1 up your track, and you may force a player to discard a mischief token. Mischief tokens allow you to do different abilities, like, for example, Loki there uses mischief tokens to shoot you forward. Depending if you have even or uneven tokens, depends on how far you move and interact. It's a very nice looking game. It didn't quite hook me enough, but again, 20 quid, so cheap. Another one that he made, again, so this was like, you're sort of your deck builder, so the characters you have changes the points, and they are your objectives. But the real reason I really like this stand was because of this. They are called Crab Games, Red Crab Games, and this game had, oh darn it, I thought I'd put a picture of the belt board. Let me just quickly grab a picture of the belt board. So these are your characters. Each of your characters has a very different play style, so the way they interact is very, very different. But the thing that really made me sit up and take notice was the board. So, can you see that? Is that?
Nope.
Can you see that?
Nope.
There's not a video showing up now?
Nah.
Well, I'm not playing it, but...
Nope.
Okay. So what can you see?
The pictures of the cards.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Weird. I don't know why you can't see that, but basically what it is the box. So the top of the box is just a normal box, but the bottom sections are 2 separate boxes. And you rotate the box, and you see here, this looks like a little controller pad. It's because above that, what you've got is where your models sit, and it's on a track, and it's like Street Fighter. So your little models fight along the top.
Right.
And the way it works is you've got your deck, and your deck has different moves, and so you've got like different arrows, like you push forward, or you pull your opponent back, or you reverse places, or you kick them into like the scenery and stuff like that. So it's like Street Fighter, but as a board game.
Sorry,
And it's very cool.
it reminds me, we had a guy on the Geek Pridecast not last week, but the week before, a guy called Josh Hicks. He's a cartoonist who does comic books, but he also has created a game called let me see if I get this right. It's called. Oh, it's going to annoy me. It's a wrestling one, and we just had him on the podcast. Wrestling. It's called Wrestling Alliance. Bro. Oh, what the? Oh yeah, sorry. It's called Glorious Wrestling Alliance Ultra Brawl, and it's a deck building wrestling game where you sort of have a character and you sort of kind of use your cards to do combos and hit each other with chairs and stuff like that. And I'm not generally into games like this or like that and stuff, but yeah, I backed it. It was quite cheap, so I thought I'd give it a whirl.
Well, this one is called Fatal Knockout, and it's coming to Kickstarter. This is the fourth Kickstarter that they'll have been fulfilling, with the other three going through nice and smooth. This isn't a deck builder. You have a deck. That's your character's moves. Okay. Although there will be expansions. You get like 10 models in the box and stuff like that. So that was very cool. So Fatal Knockout, designed by Neil Crabtree. This was the one we were talking about with the different characters. The only one I didn't buy was Righteous Jaunt, but mainly because it was 4 for a tenner, so that one would have been an extra £3. I can't even remember what it was about. They described it to me, and I was like, meh. This was cool. This was just a company I hadn't heard of, and what he does is freelance design. So he designs all of his miniatures, and again, I really want to do an interview with him because he's one of these guys who, COVID came, lost his job, had always played around with design, had nothing he could, it was no other way of making money, so he just started doing that during the pandemic, and it absolutely took off for him, and it's just really nice.
Oh, cool.
Loads and loads of really nice miniatures. This one's a lot of fun. This one is
a jousting game. Is it a jousting game?
It is a jousting game. And it's called, who's it by? TT Combat. TT Combat, who I always forget make games. They make things like there's a wrestling game they make, etc. But this one, it's called Half Tilt. So in jousting, of course, it would be full tilt.
Yeah.
Because you go full tilt on your horse. But if you look at the size of all the characters, do you notice anything about the characters?
I can't see them very well, but no.
No? Do they look particularly tall by comparison to the stand in between them? Or particularly tall in the little tent?
No, are they halflings? Are they all halflings?
They're halflings, hence half tilt rather than full tilt.
Right.
So this was a lot of fun. You've got your little deck. Each character has a stat. So they have a speed stat, they have a strength stat, they have a prowess stat, a defense stat, and a health stat. When you go towards each other, you get a pile of dice. So your fighting ability gives you a number of dice. You then secretly assign them to one of it's either 3 or 4 slots. I can't remember. So one is how many attack dice you're rolling, how many defense dice you're rolling, how much speed you have, and then there was another one which I can't remember, like finesse or glory or something like that. So when you're galloping up to each other, you roll your dice to see who gets the higher score. The number of hits you do, that difference is the damage. So we were charging each other. He had the green one, the drunk one, and I had the chicken one.
All right.
And Sir Robin? Sir Robin bravely ran away. I had that guy. And we hit each other. We rolled the same amount of damage. We both rolled our saves, but because he had like something that means because when he's drunk, he doesn't take as much damage, he stayed in his horse and my guy got knocked off. And it was a lot of fun. Apparently it's going to be 10 nights, all the terrain that you can see there, all the rules, all the books, etc. And the guy he said, don't quote me on it. He says, but it's going to be between 30 and 40.
Okay, it's not top bad.
So I was like,
yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. I think that might be... Oh, this was cool. Have you heard of Wreck and Ruin?
No.
Okay, so Wreck and Ruin was like a Mad Max style game. So it's a hex-based game. You have different types of vehicles. So you have your little light ones all the way up to your big buses. You need to get onto the objective points by ramming them out the way. You can shoot them with guns. And they had this really cool thing where like the little vehicles had flames that you would actually insert into the vehicle. So as it got on more fire, it did reasonably well on Kickstarter, but it didn't do quite as well as the guide hoped. And he's a Glaswegian lad, so obviously got to put the support in there. But this is his next game, so he's a massive fan of Kingdom Death Monster.
Okay, yeah.
So the idea of this game is the big models are just representative. So you can see the models at the back. Can I? Dang it, I thought I had a closer up picture of the miniatures. But these are all prototypes anyway. They're going to be slightly bigger than this. It's a cooperative monster hunter. Yeah. So you've got a monster. You all have to work together. It has front arcs. It has back arcs. It has weak points. And you have to sort of grind on it. So here, for example, you're fighting this big pig. As you do damage to this big pig, and depending on where you hit it, it gets a rage meter. It has a standard deck, and then it has a rage deck. So when you flip from the rage deck, it's like crazy damage, and it does something insane, and then it goes back to 0. But it doesn't go back to 0 because it slowly gets angrier and angrier. So you see that little red cross starts covering up where the starting point is.
Yeah.
So the longer the game goes for, the more violent this pig gets. And where you attack, you see there the wounded razor tusk track. So where you attack it from depends on what you get. So the best loot is obviously at the front, but if you're at the front, you're more likely to get gored.
Yeah.
And they're going to release. They're releasing the game set, but with standees. So the standees, they reckon, because this thing's going to have he was like, yeah, it's going to have 1,000 cards. And he was like, it'll probably be about 70 again, not to quote on any of those. And then there'll be a miniature pack that you can buy separately.
Okay.
And so you've got 10 monsters, 5 characters. You see there on either side of the board, you've got the characters, they have health, they also have experience trackers, and they have their own action decks. When you do the action deck, have you ever played Gloomhaven?
Yes.
Yes. So in Gloomhaven, you have a top action and a bottom action. Top action is sort of your generic action. Bottom action is your reaction. So you'll have a hand to choose from. And when you choose to use those cards, you can spam all the top bits, or you might hold some back to sort of do the bottom bit. As your character gains experience, he gets extra abilities, but he can also be injured, which will limit certain abilities. So it was pretty cool as well. I really like the look of that. But to be honest, when he said with real pride that there'll be 1,000 things, I was like, oh. It's always what kind of puts me off about those big games where you have tons of management.
I'm all about the lots of things, the money, the value for money.
Oh no. No, I'd much rather have less tokens, especially since I played Gloomhaven. We bought it, the physical version, then because of lockdown, we were allowed to play it, so we played it then on Tabletop Simulator. So our actual version is just sitting there unloved because we played the heck out of it. Cool. So that was my Tabletop Expo. Not a huge amount of swag, but tons and tons of games tried out and played, and loads of nice people chatted to.
Nice.
I said, it's always nice to just go and meet the indie ones. Steamforged Games was there as well, and I went up and demanded more information about their Elden Ring adaptation, because they'd literally leaked an image from it. They'd put up, what's his name? God, the first boss. Basically, they'd put up, and it looks amazing. The thing is
they're re-releasing the Dark Souls board game, or they're bringing out some expansions.
And they've done pretty good prices on them as well. Dang it, I forgot to look that up actually, because there's certain expansions. Then again, I don't know if they'll ever do the Four Kings, because that goes for crazy money on eBay.
Yeah, well, we were talking they sent us. We may be able to talk to one of them on the podcast. They reached out to Pete and said to him about it. I'm not a massive fan of the Dark Souls board game, to be fair, because I thought it was a bit grindy. But one of the other guys is going to give it a whirl, and we might talk to the fella on the podcast about it. So that'll be interested. The Elden Ring one,
I thought the same thing, and then we did sort of tweaks. There's so many community tweaks for that game. We did some very simple ones. We made it whenever you enter a room, change the card.
Yeah.
So you were fighting a different room rather than fighting the same room. We made it more souls. I think we increased it by 1 per difficulty sort of thing. And just little tweaks like that, and we found it was a lot better after that.
Did I play it with you? It was like Sean. I think Sean Wallace brought it down to my old place once. Was it you, me, and him that played it, possibly, or was it just me and him?
Maybe, I don't think so.
Yeah. I just thought, like, as a game, I hate having to do stuff over and over and over again, and I just got that feeling when I was playing that game. It was just like, I'm just doing this over and over and over again, and we were just losing to the game, and I was just like getting just like there's no joy. Beautiful models and stuff like that, but yeah, I hate the grind. I hate the grind.
Mine was one of those ones that I ummed and ahed about selling it or not for ages, but then kept it, and I occasionally get it out. And like I said, with the modified rules, I quite enjoy it. It's hard, but I like that.
You like hard things,
right? Really? So, speaking of Kickstarters, that is the topic of today's discussion. Where are they now? Because we no longer just have Kickstarter, do we? We've now got GameFound. We've now got Cool Mini or Not Specific One. We have loads and loads of these crowdfunding. So I guess the first thing we should check, although at this point, if you've listened to the podcast at all, this is a rhetorical question. Matt, do you use Kickstarter?
Oh, I wonder if Matt uses Kickstarter. Matt's had to seriously downgrade his usage of Kickstarter. I think I've backed that wrestling game, which was like 20 quid. I think apart from that, the last game I backed was the Total War Kickstarter, which was
that was on GameFound, wasn't it?
Yeah, quite a while. And the only reason I realized it was on there is because you was like, "Yeah, it's live," and I was like, "Holy shit, it's live!" But yeah,
on the podcast, you got that horrible realization.
Yeah. So apart from that, I'm trying not to because it's like crack. But yes, I do.
I do as well. I haven't backed one in quite some time, although there will be one coming along because there's that game, the War in Wonderland, is getting an expansion. So that's kind of what I sort of said to myself. I said, if it was a game from a franchise I absolutely love, and they immediately released Monster Hunter as the board game, and I was like, well, I'm getting that. And then the other one was if it's an expansion to a game I already have. Those were my rules, which then they brought out Mythic Games, brought out Ragnarok, which then cost like £300.
Oh no.
So we are both have been or are addicts to the sort of medium. I wouldn't say I got properly addicted, not in the same way that I got addicted at one point to eBay, where I was buying stuff every single day and had to like close my account and ban myself. Well, I definitely for a while I was pretty close to getting the Super Backer Badge, which when you think about it is both a badge of pride and a cry for help. Because it means you've backed so many in such a short period of time.
Yeah, I'm not quite there, to be fair. I think I've backed probably about 60 odd sort of things.
You can back them in a short amount of time because there's a time limit as well to get the badge. It's not just getting it.
Right, okay, right. Yeah.
But sorry, for anyone that doesn't know, if you were to describe Kickstarter, its original lofty ideals and purpose, what would you say Kickstarter was for?
To basically, it's like a pre-order site, isn't it? It's basically giving people a chance who have an idea for something and say, I have this idea, this is what it is. If you back this now, you will get a copy of it, or you will get said thing, or you will see the movie early, and it will be slightly cheaper for you before it goes into retail. So it's basically to give, instead of having to buy a load of merch or a load of items, you basically say, I've got this idea, you pay for it now, I'll build it, and then you get it in X amount of time for slightly cheaper and stuff.
Okay, so we'll clarify just straight away. It's not a pre-order website. In fact, Kickstarter themselves make it very clear that effectively the creators have zero responsibility, and Kickstarter has absolutely negative responsibility to actually provide you those items. Yeah. That's something that Kickstarter makes abundantly clear. that they're like, look, if a Kickstarter goes under, it's not our problem,
And I've been
and
there,
this is
and they
not an
won't.
ordering city.
They won't help you. I've had a couple of tech ones. I've got one in Indiegogo and one in Indiegogo and one on Kickstarter. Which one? The Kickstarter one, it ended up. I had to go to my credit card company and just say, look, they wouldn't give me they wouldn't give me my money back. They won't give me the product and stuff. This is fraud, and so I got it back based on fraud. So they give me my money back on that.
Always pay for stuff with a credit card, because then you have that protection. I can't remember what the law or rule is.
Yeah,
you're the man who would know this kind of thing. Can you remember what it is in the UK?
I can't even remember because that's not the sort of fraud I deal with. But So you can get it back. I got it back on my credit card. To be honest, and I got it back because there's a time limit on it, but I just went, and they still did it. There's another one which is like it's tech ones are notorious for being bad, especially ones coming out of sort of kind
some of the biggest ones. You go and like, the biggest ones of all time. Then you click into them, read the comments, and like, oh, this wasn't delivered. And you're like,
yeah.
Like Kickstarter, I appreciate that if a small company folded, this Kickstarter took in like 10 million and didn't provide it. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, well, it's like anything tech related, I am super dubious. Like I've backed 4 tech related sort of crowdfunders things. One for a credit card size SSD card, SSD, hard drive. So it's 4 terabytes, but it's the size of a credit card. And I was just like, holy shit, that's great. It's got Wi-Fi and stuff. I was like, that's great for photographs and things like that. You can sync everything up. That's been in limbo for years now, and it's getting to the point where I may have to sort of like loads of people. Like I'm quite patient. A lot of people, if it doesn't turn up within the allotted time, they're complaining about when they get their money back and stuff like that. I'm aware that Kickstarters have problems and they take longer to stuff, but this one's been going on for a long time now, and it's getting to the point where I may have to try and sort of go through my credit card company again and try and get my money back, because they're not looking like they're leading. Now, every now and again, they do pop something out saying that there was an issue in the factory lockdown and stuff, so I'm giving them a little bit more time. The second one was was a memory stick thing, but it was like larger memory, but in a flash drive. That never turned up at all, and they just stopped talking to people. So that has been.
Did anyone receive it?
No, nobody received it. So that was just like, they've just taken the money and run. The third one was a drone, and on paper the drone looked awesome and it had all these cool things, and like it does all this cool stuff, and it came with this control pad. It could go into your phone. I got it. I went, oh, this looks awesome. The idea is looks good. The camera on it is bollocks. The battery life on it is literally non-existent. It goes in the air. You can fly it for about a minute, and then it wants to come down again. And I was just like, what the? I was so disappointed with that thing. It was just like.
And did it make a claim on the Kickstarter page about how long the battery would be, or anything
no?
Like that?
A lot of people moaned about it afterwards and stuff like that. But again, they just said they had all these flash things saying this is it, and it was obviously made cheaply and just badly, and it just sort of it looked nice. And it wasn't what it sort of was designed to be and stuff, and it was
But is that? But did you feel like they like if you were to read that, did they actually commit fraud? Did they actually? It was
definitely It was definitely false advertising. It looked the same, but it didn't really. Let's just say the video quality was not as good as it showed. It wasn't as intuitive as like it flies and it hovers on its own and things. But it was just like, it wasn't great.
It wasn't just you reading into something.
No, it was definitely just a load of people were moaning about the battery life and things like that. It was just sort of like, and it was just like, it's just the point where I was really, it's just in a drawer now. I couldn't, send it back or anything. That was it, done. What else have we got? Okay, there's one.
So what would you say is the original? So we sort of talked about like the original sort of purpose of it, but who do you think Kickstarter wanted versus who they actually got. Because for me, I always imagined it being a chance for me and you, average Joes, to put forward our wares, and that you're basically asking them to almost be shareholders, the people contributing, like to take on the risk for a chance at reward. Because that's what shareholders basically are. You buy shares, you hope it goes up in value. If it doesn't, you're stuffed. So that's what I sort of imagined. I imagined it little people like us doing it. But would you say that's what it has become? Do you think Kickstarter works for little people anymore?
Yeah, I think it started off like that, and I think bigger companies have realized that they can save a lot of money on this now. So you think most big board game companies now go through Kickstarter or their own sort of platform because they don't have to buy product beforehand and waste money on stuff they're not going to sell. They literally can use it as a pre-order thing, and they can literally just go, we're building this game, how many of you want it? And we'll throw in some sort of free stuff or whatever, and they can use
and what do you think about that? Do you think this is a good thing or a bad use? Because I'll be honest with you, having been burned because of board games and those kind of stuff before, I kind of you can kind of appreciate it. Although, to be honest, again, a different topic is whether or not Kickstarter, cool many or not, sickness with how many miniatures they give you is a bad thing. That's a different topic. So the first one I want to know is, do you think that's a good thing, bad thing? Big companies using it as a pre-order system.
Yeah, it's the only bad thing for me is that back in the day when there wasn't that many games coming out, so you got a game and you played the hell out of it and you sort of loved that game, and then you moved on to another game and stuff. But because it's more accessible now, people like me who are really super oh my god, new shiny thing, I must have it becomes slightly overwhelming. And all these there's loads of games that I've got and I've not played and I'd like to, because there's that new shiny thing that's come out, or there's this other thing, and I don't think you appreciate it as much. You don't appreciate things as much and stuff. I don't think it's a bad thing. For me, it's a bad thing because there's just too much choice out there, and it's just hard to sort of kind of sift through and get sort of certain games. Like every now and again, you do get certain games where you're just like, "Fuck it, this is amazing." But I get taken on board way too easy by pretty things, and because it's too easy and they come out so regularly, like all the time, there's new games coming out in Kickstarter all the time, that it's becoming slightly overwhelming and stuff. And so for me, it's a bad thing. For companies, it's not a bad thing because they can sort of they can create their ideas. For bigger companies, it just saves a lot of money.
I think actually, in a way, this is from someone who is a hypocrite in many regards. I think the problem with the big ones is they should almost be on a different platform. The reason being is the way they run theirs has now sort of defined how Kickstarters have to be run. You got to have stretch goals. People expect loads of freebies. They expect to discount. They expect this, they expect that. And I think it's, in a way, moved away from the sort of origin of what it could have and should have been. I wanted it for people to be able to create their dreams, be able to fund your game that you're not going to sell many copies of, but if it just covers the cost of you being able to make the game, it would be so worth it. Whereas now, I think because the big boys come in and they do all their thing, little companies, people will look at it and go, I'm not buying that. What's the point? I'll just wait for it to come out into a store. But those little ones are never going to go to store, whereas the big ones can go to store, which is another thing. Do they still go to store anymore?
No, a lot. You do sort of get the odd one because they obviously build enough to have a few extra that go on the stores, but a lot of it is Kickstarter exclusive. So there's loads of games that you're not going to hate. Is one you're not going to get that in a board game shop or anything anymore. You're not going to get a lot of these cool mini or not games really in board game shops anymore and stuff because they're just being bought on Kickstarter. But the smaller ones, I would say that there's people like you. I'm unfortunately not one of those guys. And it's not being elitist, it's just I like shiny things. So if somebody turns around to me and goes, here's a piece of paper and you've got to imagine this, I'm just like, I'm not interested. I just like, if there's not pretty, it's like if there's not pretty minis and shiny things for my sort of dopamine levels to go, ooh, I need that, then I have zero interest in it. But there's people like you who likes quirky stuff, who like, new things, and stuff, and that's their target audience and stuff. It's like comic book artists and stuff like that. There's comic book creators, like the guy we had on, small comic book creator, and he's not looking for thousands and thousands of pounds, but they got enough because there were certain people who liked that sort of thing, so it's, I don't think it's if you want to be big, if you want to have a massive hit, if you want something that's going to sort of get millions of pounds and be funded within 5 seconds, you need pretty minis, and you need lots of stretch goals, and you need a stretch goal for every sort of kind of £1,000 extra that you go over or whatever, and you need all these other things, are fine. But if you're just your average independent Joe who's trying to create something, if somebody likes the game, they will. Like, I've backed a couple of old school war games. I've got one on Gettysburg, I've got one on Waterloo, old school hex based games and stuff. There weren't more than a couple of £1,000 on their sort of a couple of £1,000 on their their target and stuff like that, and I back them just because this sort of nostalgic, the old school sort of hex based war games and stuff. So if you're into it, I think you'll find games you like. I don't think you need to compete with the big boys. The big boys are just the poster children and stuff, the triple A's.
But you can't tell me, like, when you go and look on Kickstarter isn't pushing all these ones that are because it makes them money. That's how Kickstarter makes its money, on the percentage cost of it.
Yeah, so you'll have the ones.
Did you know that they? Sorry.
You'll have the ones on there that are very pretty, and this one's 500% funded and stuff like that, and they're invariably the ones with all this sort of like super fancy stuff going on. But if you're like me, I do like trawling through Kickstarter and stuff, so I don't just sort of look at the main things and stuff. I do have a look through and stuff, and I go, that's where I find, there's one, there's another World War II type Pacific War, or is it? It's basically the Battle of Midway, but it's like done in sort of kind of tokens and stuff like that, and it's all cartoonish and stuff, kind of like Heroes of Normandy. And I was just looking through Kickstarter and saw that one. Oh, I'll back that. That looks kind of cool. So yeah, there is, if you're that way inclined, you'll do that anyway. But if you're literally just like pretty things, you're always going to get the expensive ones first.
So you don't think that it has ruined it for the small creators?
I think
because when was the last time you saw a game? I guess my question is how finished do you sort of expect a game to be? I guess in my head, what I sort of imagine is, don't get me wrong, you still have to have a dream. You still have to have a clear cut thing. You still have to have a well written Kickstarter page. You still have to have clear photos and at least show me enough of towards the I still need you to have put some money in. Like, for example, if you've got a deck of 50 cards, I want to see at least 5 to 10 of those with the final or near enough final artwork. I have to have seen you've invested more than just time. Like, if I saw a Kickstarter that was just all, someone had sketched stuff, like drawing a stick man, and it's like, this will be a Centurion, I'll be a bit like,
no.
You
have to have something on there. I have zero interest in really crappy DIY looking ones and stuff. It doesn't, it could be an awesome game, but you've not put a lot of effort into it at all, so I'm not going to bother with it and stuff. The guys, Bevan, who it's also for Geek Pride. I mean, did you ever meet Bevan?
I have met Bevan. Yeah. We did the. Is he not the guy we did the Call of Cthulhu one with?
No, that's Sean. Yeah.
No, I don't think I have met Bevan then.
So Bevan's basically runs he's part of a company called Tinkerbot Games. They've got
his Ghost Motel.
Yeah, Ghostel, and then he's got Haunticulture, which is the newest one that they're doing and stuff. They're sort of indie games, all very cutesy, sort of kind of like zombies, sort of gardening, I think, the new ones, and then there's obviously the Ghostel ones about ghosts in a hotel and stuff. And they sort of do a lot, like he shows me photographs and stuff, and it's like, it is all stuff that they they do it like drawing stuff out in cards and stuff and playing on the table. But they've said they use Tabletop Simulator now, so they get the artwork done and then they place it on Tabletop Simulator so people can actually see how it feels. And I found a lot of companies do that now. Or there's another one. What's the other one called? It's not Tabletop Simulator. It's called Gameopolis or something along those lines.
Game Arena or Game Arena, that kind of thing.
Something like that. But you basically got
they exploded during lockdown.
Tabletopia, maybe I think's one. But so you got these, and they sort of build them on those. And so they do that, so you can play the game beforehand. They can see what it is without having to spend loads of money on production. Like, fine, the miniatures might not be bang on because they're like renders or whatever, or like that, but you've got something a little bit more sort of that looks real. And it's not just a bunch of photographs of a guy with a stick man on some blank cards and stuff like that. So you have.
How much of a danger do you think creating like something in Tabletop Simulator and then providing it like just on like the web page of your Kickstarter, do you think that causes damage to it, or do you think people that are like it are going to buy it anyway? How much do you think? I mean, this could be a topic in its own right, I guess, about Tabletop Simulator, and is it a good thing or a bad thing for the hobby? You know, we could talk about my Gloomhaven experience. We bought the physical game, we have it, we couldn't play it because of lockdown. We played it on Tabletop Simulator, and now our copy is just sitting there. They had the money out of ours. Is what we did wrong, but I guess that's a topic.
Would you play it though? If you played it on Tabletop Simulator first, would you have bought the game? Would you go, that's a cool game, I might buy that?
No.
Okay.
No, absolutely not. But you know, it was such a specific set of circumstances because we were in lockdown. We couldn't play the was £120. I think we all chipped in 30 quid into it.
There's a lot of games that do it now. Like a lot of games have especially on Kickstarter, they go, you can play this, and sometimes they only do it for a limited time where you can play it online to try it out. But
the thing is, you can't stop someone saving it and then uploading it.
Exactly. So it's one of those things, but I don't think it hurts that much. For me personally, if I play something I like on Tabletop Simulator, I'm likely to go and buy it in person because I like the tangible thing. It's like books. If I like having that thing, even if I'm not going to, I might play it on Tabletop Simulator. I like having the thing. It's just one of the things I listen to most of books. I don't read a lot anymore. I just do audiobooks, but I always buy the book because I like having the book.
But you bought the audiobook and you bought the book. If anything, you double supported them. I don't think it's the same thing.
But I don't think it may hurt them slightly, but I think it gets. I don't know. You don't know. It wouldn't hurt.
You don't put up the finalized thing. So if you want the final experience, you go and you have to.
And you can, a lot of them do it so you can buy the game on Tabletop Simulator. Unfortunately, you get things like, Play Access and Allies. Somebody's just scanned everything in and, stuck it on there. And, people, maybe some companies aren't maximizing. What they should do is go fine. If you don't want the actual version, you can have this finished version on Tabletop Simulator and reduce the price by X amount or whatever. So there you go. If you can have the physical copy with all these pretty things, or you can have the Tabletop Simulator version. Here you go. It's only a tenner, 20 quid. So you make some money off it. If they give it for free, then I guess that's down to them. But I don't think it. There's so many Kickstarters I've seen with Tabletop Simulator versions of theirs that I can't hurt them that badly, or other people wouldn't be doing it, So, as long as if it shows off something pretty, a lot of people just like, they do Kickstarters because they like pretty things, and it's like, I like those minis, and I like the idea of that game, I'll buy that, and fine, they might just get the game that comes through, like for example that Joan of Arc game I've got, huge game, millions of minis, like, lots of scenery and things like that. And I've seen so many of them go back up for sale again because lots of people have seen that pretty thing. It's massive, it got loads of stuff, and then realized it's too big. They're never going to play it and they're trying to sell it on. But they bought it because that thing sort of, took, it's like, oh, pretty thing, lots of stuff. And, and that's
what would you say the good things about Kickstarter? So one, you're saying that you can still, as an indie developer, get your stuff out there. Two, it's good for the company because it saves them on money.
Yep.
3, exposure. Would you say Kickstarter sort of like free advertising because people like yourself and myself, sort of do scrolling through it. How is it good for the consumer?
It's good. It's good for the consumer because you got the chance of buying something cheaper. Now, granted,
that otherwise might also not exist.
Yeah, that might you're getting something that, had they had to pay for X, Y, and Z, you probably wouldn't have got. It's more accessible. It's literally just click and wait. For consumers, it's great. I think the crowdfunding sites are, especially for gaming, is a godsend. Unfortunately, with that comes the chance that the game will never turn up or take forever to turn up. We've had when Dice Sports' game and Airflix took 4 years, 3-4 years to turn up and stuff. Like, I had a good interview with the guy at UK Games Expo about it and stuff, and he told me like the amount of he's the second guy who's basically told me that creating a game on Kickstarter is one of the most stressful things ever. It's like really, really bad. And
we're on the good things just now. We'll come back to the bad things.
Yeah. So
what are the good things? We're being positive. The power of positive.
Yeah, I think it makes things more accessible. You've got more choice.
Brings down the price because if they can pre-order in bulk.
Yeah, you get lots of free stuff. Some games you get, like you said, Cool Mini or not, you get you get so many extra pieces with it and stuff because
it's to be ticked with the good and bad box.
Yeah, it's the economy of scale and stuff, so you're literally getting a lot more and stuff for your money. It's just sort of, it's great, and it's you're getting it for relatively cheap.
Have you experienced much where you can give like sort of almost live feedback? Have you done it? Have you found many creators that take on board feedback? For example, Cool Mini or not, with their Ragnarok, loads of people absolutely hated the Loki model. They changed the Loki model. They've done stuff like this, but that to me is both a double-edged sword as well. Like there's like a certain element of where people will capitulate to the audience, to the loud vocal few. Although, to be honest, I was on the side of the vocal ones. I really didn't like what they'd done with Loki. I was so glad when they changed it to the new model. So in that one, I didn't want to criticize it too much because I was like, oh yeah, I'm pretty pleased. There was another one where Fenrir, instead of being a Titan, so you got your gods, you got your titans, and then you've got your monsters.
Yeah.
They'd made Fenrir a monster, like this size. And I was like, what? No, Fenrir's huge. So then again, Outcry came out, and so they made a big Fenrir, and we're like, yes, that's what we're talking about. And again, there was quite a few things in that campaign where I was kind of like, I kind of agree with them. I don't want to be a dick though, and like post in the comments going, yeah, it'd be nice if you changed that. But I was also, when other people were dicks, again, like I said, I'm a self-confessed hypocrite. In that regard, I was very pleased at the backlash almost. So let's. I'm slightly worried that we're struggling to come up with positives, but I feel like the positives that are there are pretty positive. They're pretty strongly positive.
Yep.
So let's move on to the negatives, which keep popping up. I mean, I think in the first 5 minutes of us coming on to today's topic, you'd already listed several negatives.
Yeah.
So the first one is, if you're backing a Kickstarter for the first time, ignore the delivery date.
Yeah.
Add a year on minimum.
Yeah.
Like,
especially for board games.
I see people getting, exactly, yeah. Every time I see someone getting really mad in the comments about something being delayed, I'm like, is this your first Kickstarter?
Yeah. Exactly
you know that there's is it in the Pirates of the Caribbean? There's a guy with a noose around his neck in the gallows, and he turns, and there's the old man. And the old man's like, first time.
Yeah.
And they always use it for like EA talking to like Bandai Games and stuff like that. And they're like, first time with you, backlash. I always think of that. Like every time I see that, I'm like, really? Is this your first Kickstarter?
Yeah.
They're gonna be, because of COVID, man.
I'm very
Jesus. Some of those were late.
I'm very I'm very chilled about Kickstarters. Like I said, I got the Hero Quest one. Like obviously there's the Hasbro one which has just come out, but the one originally that I backed many years ago is eventually apparently it's about to come out with a change of name. But I've been waiting for that for a long time, and I didn't complain about it because I was like, one, I was just like, I've lost the money, I didn't want to bother about it. But two, I was just like, shit happens, things go down. But it's like the Airflix, I got slightly more iffy. If what sort of sets me off isn't things taking ages, it's not being updated at all when people go quiet, not being communicated, and that's happened.
How often would you say an update you would sort of expect? You expect weekly, monthly?
Once a month, even if it's just like, look, we're in the same spot, but look, don't worry, we're still thinking about sorting this out. If it's just something, even if it was the same thing, that would sort of keep my mind at bay and stuff, even if it was every other month and stuff like that. But the one thing, and like I talked to a guy about it, and I talked to some of his mates who work for Nightfall Games, sort of the RPG. Is it Nightfall? Yeah, it's Nightfall. The RPG company and stuff. And they were on a podcast. It's a really insightful podcast about Kickstarters as well. I'm talking the one about talking to Rob from Dice Sports and stuff. Both of them are really sort of kind of, you kind of see it from the other side, because as much as me as a consumer, I'm thinking this is like, look, I'm quite a patient person, but when you're ignoring me and you're not replying, I'm getting slightly worried and I'm getting upset because these things, and I've lost money, blah blah blah. And on their side, they're kind of going, literally everything, especially during lockdown, fell apart. People say they're going to do stuff for you and don't do it. Companies go bust. Your suppliers do this. The stuff goes wrong. Deliveries go wrong. Everything goes wrong. And it turned out the guy from Dice Sports had to pay. He didn't make any money off it. He lost money because he had to pay all the extra shipping because of Brexit. He then had to pay all the other stuff that went on top of it. So he had to borrow money, as well as having COVID and all the other stuff. And that's, and I said to him, I said, look, in the future, man, if I'm to be candid with you and stuff, I would at least sort of say something now and again just to sort of keep people in the thing. The one thing that was annoying me, and the reason I sort of eventually said something, was that there was zero updates at all. There's another one, the guys the succubus model, the succubus thing I've got behind you, the big thing, they did another one called Moloch, which is another big sort of kind of model, and they had one update that basically said that their supplier had gone bust and they couldn't fulfill the thing, so they're looking into something, and that's the last we heard from them for 4 months. Haven't heard anything from them, and that is frustrating because they said email us and we'll sort them out. And I said, look, if you can't, I emailed them, I said, look, if you're having problems with this model and I can't get it, it's not an issue, I understand. Just let me know what you've got around, because there's other of their collectibles which I quite liked. I said, if you've got one of these, I'll have that instead or something. And they never replied. And it's stuff like that sort of irks me and annoys me. It's because I understand stress. I've been there. I understand that you just want to shut down and things like that. But sometimes you just got to, if you want to sort of fulfill something and not be a pariah for the rest of your lives, you have to have some sort of communication.
Because a month is a long time. For nothing at all to have happened. Like you said, I would rather bad news. Bad news is better than no news.
Yeah, exactly. So you just need
this thinking.
You need something, and
which I think quite often happens. You'll get no communication, and that's, again, if you're going to back a Kickstarter. But this comes to my next question of: do you think that you deserve or owed a refund if a Kickstarter is not going well? Like, for example, let's say you're 6 months in. Can you ask for a refund on it?
No,
this is where it becomes weary, because it's not like it, you mentioned at the beginning, and I very quickly just wanted to snip it because this is not a pre-order system. It sort of is, and because of big companies, people kind of expect it. But this isn't like pre-ordering a PS4. You know, it's not like
it's a risk.
Oh, sorry. Oh God, I'm so far behind the times. I don't have a PS5, so I'm so far behind the times. It's not like pre-ordering a PS5 from Sony. If Sony take your money, I expect a dang product through your Steam Deck. I expect a product. With Kickstarter, you're funding people's dreams.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you wouldn't expect, if you did a GoFundMe, you wouldn't expect the money back. So what do you think about that? Do you think people should be able to 6 months in, a year in, 2 years in?
No, it actually annoys me when people, and you get it all the time, in all the ones where there's been delays, or all the ones where it's in, people demand, like they always cite the same, you know, as a part of blah blah blah, I demand a refund as of this and stuff, and it's just like, do you understand how this works? You can't get a refund from them and stuff. They can voluntarily give you a refund, but they don't have to give you a refund because that's just the way it is. If you want to get your money back, if you're ever an issue with you go to your credit card company, because it's the only way you're going to get your money back if you really don't want it and stuff. But you have to prove that they are not actively trying to give it to you. You have to have emailed them. They've responded. If they haven't responded, you've got to, you know, chase up, and then if you're not getting anything, then you can ask for a refund from your credit card company. But you can't do it from, or PayPal, you know, same thing. You can't you have to show that they are actively not communicating with you or trying to rectify the situation. But there's loads of people, I want a refund, I'm doing this, you know, and this is a scam. It may well be a scam, but you're not getting a refund and stuff. And it annoys me slightly when people start doing that. It annoys me especially when it's only being like a delay by 6 months or a delay by a year. It's like you said, it's like, have you been on Kickstarter before and stuff? You know, I've waited for stuff for like 3-4 years. If you backed Star Citizen, if you backed the computer game Star Citizen, you're still waiting for that, and that was launched in 2000. So that was kickstarted in 2000, and
they've taken up hundreds of millions. Like it's the most funded game ever made.
My mate's missus is HR for them. For them, she works for them. She's HR for them. Makes a fair bit of money, and apparently they've got some really nice sort of like perks and things like that, and like they've got a nice office and shit. And it's like, so that's where all that money's going to. They at least have been giving updates, and they give betas. You know, exactly. People can play.
They've given you a product, and it's just in beta forever.
Yeah, it's going to be like, you know, it's a very. You know, it's a very complicated game, so you know, and at least they're doing something, not just shutting off.
The only thing is I wish they'd finished like their core promise first. Like there's now a single player, but what? Why? That was never a thing. Finish the first game before you move on to the next game. But yeah, my little brother has bought so many. Like he bought one of the capital ships and stuff like that. It's like crazy.
Star Citizen. What was the year?
Because that was the crazy thing is that if you go to the website, they have a tracker to show how much money's been given. Like they don't hide it. They're like, this is how much money.
Well, they've got a company, and it's doing quite well because it's paying my missus' wife a pretty penny. One year, Kickstarter date was. Oh, fucking hell! October 18th, 2012. It's been on Kickstarter for 10 years. People have been waiting for that game.
Can you read a comment
for 10 years?
Are there any comments? Like, is there a comment, like recent comment going, when is this going to come out? Or
yeah, like for a moment. So Cloud Imperium, last updated 2013.
Oh, so they haven't even posted an update on the Kickstarter.
Right.
What about the comments?
How many comments do you think there are?
15,000.
Oh, 53,000. 53,000 comments.
What's the most recent one?
Let's see. Most recent comment. Fucking hell, 2012. I knew it was old. Okay, 20 days ago. I'm in a terrible mood, which made me remember this Kickstarter. I wish that Kickstarter actually cared about the people who wanted to support people and projects, but they only care about the money. I shouldn't be surprised, but I am. I will keep going till I'm banned, but Kickstarter and Cloud Imperium Games are shitty companies that scam people who want to support those that actually want to create. Love you all till another month, till another year, till I die. I'll be back.
It's not the first Kickstarter I've seen comments like that on where people are like, I'm going to make it my mission to post so everybody knows. It's amazing when you see people as well where they post up, they pay £1 to this company just so they can post on the comments. Then again, so how do you feel about companies who have not delivered on a Kickstarter and then start the next one before they've delivered the first one?
Yeah.
Do you think there should be a cap?
Yeah, well, they're
like Cool Mini or not, for example, perfectly trustworthy. They will deliver whatever they put up at this point. So they have like 8 running at the same time. What about new companies? Like how many do you think you should have to fulfill before you get the right to run more than one?
But this again comes down to, like, again, I was talking to Rob from Dice Sports, and they did the same thing where they had another game funded and going before they had finished the last one, and loads of people, even me, I got slightly irked about it, but the way they justified it was just like that game went into like, it's a beautiful game, I've got it, and it's a really good game, but it went to hell in a handbasket. It was costing them a lot of money. They had to have another game to try and make up for the shortfall of the last one and stuff, so they had to so you can kind of understand it in that way. They had to have a second one to try and justify, to get the other one out. But obviously a lot of people don't know that's what's going on in the background and stuff, so they're just seeing a second game out before the last one's being thing, so they're getting pissed off. But I think if you've got 2 games and they haven't been fulfilled, a third one's being super cheeky. I think, a second game sort of kind of maybe okay, as long as you can justify that the first one is at least in production and going to be with you, within a few sort of months of the other one and stuff. But yeah, I think if you have too many with unfulfilled ones, then you're taking the wee.
I mean, I guess the question then becomes is, should that money ever be used for things like wages? Because when I read about the companies where they have like sort of flipped over, it's normally because they've used the money for something else. There's one that I backed called Black Hollow Miniatures, and it's one of the ones that really annoyed me because the first one sort of came out, and the guy, I know some people that knows the person, and they spent the money on stuff that wasn't, like they took like the 15 grand or 50 grand or however much it was, and used that money to buy a machine for doing something else. They then didn't have the money to fulfill that, so they then put on a second one to get the money to pay for the first one, but then they couldn't afford to do the second one, so they're behind 2 Kickstarters deep, and you're like,
it's like a pyramid scheme.
Should you be able to use them for wages? I guess at the end of the day, Starter Citizen is an extreme example, but should they be allowed to use the Kickstarter money, which I guess they're not using Kickstarter money anymore, they're using additional pledges, or because they've got their own website and their own pledge system. But what do you think? Do you think, so let's say you make it. So a company like Cool Mini or not, they're definitely using Kickstarter money to pay for wages because it's their entire business. But what about like little companies and stuff like that?
No, because I think it's if you're
hard to define.
Smaller companies, like bigger companies, because you can tell it's going to happen. It's going to be a thing. You can see people working on it. Smaller companies, it's a bit more of a push because it's like you don't know where that money's going. Are they actually going to be using it to do something and stuff? A lot of from what I see is people just sort of use the Kickstarter money for production costs and paying for, the actual items so they can reduce the cost of it. They do it in their spare time, or they do it sort of like as a part of their actual day job and stuff. And so Kickstarter doesn't pay for it. They get paid doing whatever they do, and then it's sort of just extra. But yeah, unless you're a big company, I would be slightly reticent to pay it towards wages and stuff, because there's a lot of additional costs, and that's the one thing I've been told from Kickstarter creators over and over again is there's always extra costs. There's always additional things, be it for postage, be it for what are they called? Prototypes, be it for, things going wrong and you have to justify it. Brexit being a good example, sometimes you just have to sort of suck up certain issues and you need that buffer zone. If you've spent it all by buying new new things or all on your staff, then you're going to have nothing and you're going to be in a lot of trouble.
So we've kind of talked about in some ways how, we both agree that, they should, the expectations should be wider. Bizarre ones, Steamforge games, for example. Why the heck do they always put a year at a time as the delivery date? It's never a year. Just put 2 years.
Yeah.
So, we've definitely sort of agreed that, we always expect delays. We don't really expect anything. If things goes tits up, I would never ask someone to remortgage their house to get me the £150. Now maybe that's because I'm privileged. £150 is still, a fair chunk of change. That's 2 months whatever expendable income. Especially now with baby taking all my money. But basically what I'm saying is like I would rather lose that money. I don't want them to like go into debt to, try and get me a toy. It's just not worth it. But in that regard, I compared it to, stakeholders almost, because that's what you are. You're not pre-ordering. I want that very clear. You're not pre-ordering a product. You might be promised benefits in the same way that you're a shareholder. So what do you think about accountability then? Should there be more accountability? Should there be like almost AGMs? Should there be meetings or shareholder meetings? Do you think they should be, Kickstarter should, force the supplier? Do you think that Kickstarter should only release the wages if they've met a certain thing? Should the backers be allowed to have a vote on whether or not they've should be allowed to unlock the next 50% of backing, or do you think it's too much bureaucracy?
If you put too much red tape on it, you will stifle creativity, and certain people will use certain suppliers and use different ways to do things, and you're going to make it too restrictive. It is a risk. Every time, as long as you understand, every time you back a Kickstarter, it's a risk, and you may not see that money again. It's likely that I've had one thing that hasn't, I've definitely got a refund from a credit card company, and I've got one thing which is sort of kind of teetering on that, but out of like 69 Kickstarters or something, it's not sort of a massive risk, as long as you're being smart about what you're backing and things like that. I don't think there should be any restrictions. I think Kickstarters should maybe police the Kickstarters a bit more, vet them a bit more. Look, I suppose it's hard because, especially in the tech side of things, people can just put in different email addresses and different names and be a completely different company. And so there has to be better checks on them in some way, shape, or form to make sure that people aren't actually going to get scammed and stuff. I don't know if it's a case of like this. So there's a Spanish version of Kickstarter called, begins with an L. I want to say Lorenzo or something. It's something along those lines. I can't remember exactly what it's called. But basically, when the Hero Quest 25th anniversary got kiboshed on Kickstarter because of copyright infringement, it went to Spain because it was the only one where the copyright had lapsed and they could sort of print it in Spain. That company, whenever it sort of had financial issues, that company actually visited the warehouse where it was all being made to basically confirm with the backers that this thing was still happening and that they were sort of, trying to sort of, they were building. They sent photographs. So they made an active, as the company from that platform, they had inspectors effectively to go and check it out. And I don't think that's a bad idea. Basically, if there's a failure somewhere, then they should have somebody basically knock on a door and go, what's the score? And if they can't update them because of X, Y, and Z, then Kickstarter can update them, or Indiegogo can update, or the crowdfunding platform can say, look, this person has disappeared. Therefore, I would suggest that you get your money back from your credit card company, or this person has had a family tragedy, or this person has done this and they can't talk, or they can be that backup, that communication that maybe that person can't mentally give you at that time. And I think that's the one thing.
That's an interesting thing, because you've mentioned the credit card thing a couple of times, but we also discussed that we wouldn't expect our money back. Where is your line? Because it sounds like you do actually have a line. My sort of line is that at the end of the day, I don't want someone to, because I have definitely seen Kickstarters that have been gutted by people wanting their money back.
Oh, yeah.
And that then meant because they'd already pre-ordered the product. So where is your line? Like, what is it that makes you go to the credit card?
If you're getting your credit card money back, you're not getting it from that company. You're getting it from your insurance. Effectively, it's an insurance-based thing. So you're getting it back from your company. They can try and redeem it from them, but it's man of straw. You're unlikely, if you know anything about recovering money from fraudsters, as I do, a lot of them just, I don't have the money and I can't pay you back, and they just go, all right, and they just write it off. And that's what a lot of insurance, that's why there's so much fraud when it comes to credit cards and insurance and stuff.
I mean, this sounds like you want your cake and eating it. That sounds like what you're doing.
What?
I don't want to take the mone off of the creator, but I do want the money back.
I didn't say that. I said if I paid for something, I would expect either an item, or if I can't get my money back, and because it's a risk on Kickstarter, then I will have to go through my credit card company. So you do expect something, so you do count it as a pre-order. I guess that makes sense based on what you said at the beginning. So I would. Kickstarter's not a product, but it's not. It's not. You've read the terms and conditions. You know that they can give. Yeah, but
nothing.
I understand. As I said. Do you know what Kickstarter is? You take a risk that you won't get it back, but that's not to say I can't get my money back. If you're smart and you do it through your credit card and PayPal, you can still claim your money back because it's fraud. They've said they will give you something. They have not given you something. You've made all your efforts to try and get a refund from them. If you don't get it, then you can get your money back. And I've only done it once.
Is it fraud though? I feel like in the terms and conditions, if you read Kickstarter, someone didn't deliver anything.
I know,
it's
but
not fraud.
It is fraud. You've basically so you have said to someone, it's like, all right, so it's like me going, Sam, I've got a really good idea, and all you need to do is give me £100,000 and I'll make the best thing ever, and then I'm going to spend it on what I want, and I'm not going to build that thing. And because
that's different, because you would have to prove it. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate what you're saying. You're saying if it's a pyramid scheme, you should get your money back, and I completely agree. They had no intention of fulfilling it. But the reason I keep comparing it, hold it to stakes, is you can lose money with your shares. You can end up with negative equity. You shouldn't ever gamble your freaking house.
It's false advertising. They're saying, I will give you, there's a risks thing, but the risks.
But if they've gone bankrupt and lost it all, just like with shares.
If it's bankrupt, that's fine. It's a different thing, but it's just like, as a person, you don't know what's going on in the background. So all you're getting is nothing. So if you're going to try, especially in hard times, to try and get your money back, then you should try and get your money back. That's what you get. That's why you have these things on your credit card. That's why you have these things in insurance, because if you can basically justify that this hasn't happened. Some of them have, stipulations that if the company does go bankrupt, then you can get your money back and stuff. It's, it's not just fraud. It's,
to me, that it sounds like Kickstarter is failing in terms of what it's doing. Like the very nature of it is maybe wrong, if that's the case.
That's why they need more checks and balances, and that's why they need they shouldn't be forcing people to do things certain ways. They just need to be They need to vet who's on their platform more. And then they also have to have some sort of support network for things that go wrong, even if it's just for the creators. Because like I said, from a lot of the creators who I've talked to, it's a super stressful thing. So even if it's just from them sending somebody to that person's company, or even to their house, if they'll have to give them details maybe and say, look, yeah, we haven't heard from you in this X amount of time. The backers are getting slightly, I think, what's going on? And then they can give them a quick sort of like, my mental health is this, or this is happening. And then they can report that back, and then they've done their job. And then the backers can make a decision based on that. And I think that would go a long way to helping the darker side of Kickstarter. In the end, you accept that it's a risk, but there are these checks and balances as a patron of Kickstarter, that they will try their best to not let scammers in, let people who will just use it as a pyramid scheme, that they will do that for you, and they will try and get updates, and they will try and push for things. If they did that, then
I mean, we both agree on that, but do you think that Kickstarter should just admit that it's a pre-order program? Should it, or I think it's deliberately not doing it because it doesn't want to get sued, because it's like, I'm not a vendor. I'm not a vendor.
It's legal
But do you think it
reasons.
should own up to being that?
No,
But do you think it should own up to it
No,
or
but
not? Do you think this wishy-washy is fine?
No, because it's all legal stuff. So for example, when you investigate fraud, right? You can never, like, for when I was working for an insurance company, you never used the word fraud. It's the same when you work for solicitors. You never use the word fraud, because as soon as you use the word fraud, you're basically you can get sued. You're basically saying they're fraudulent. And as soon as you make that accusation, you have to prove it. And therefore, it's so if you kind of wishy-washy around it, so you would never, even though you have to admit this is fraudulent and stuff, they're never going to do it, because as soon as they admit it's fraudulent, then it's a criminal act, and then it ceases to be a civil act, and therefore they can go to jail. So they will just kind of go, oh, we were misled, or this happened, or this happened. It's the same principle. It's basically, they're not going to admit to something because that leaves them open to litigation, and so they have to keep it wishy-washy because that stops them from being sued.
So to bring back round to do you think you should be able to request a refund halfway through a Kickstarter? Should you or shouldn't you?
I think there should be an option. But that would be completely down to the vendor. If the vendor says you have the option to refund, then you should be able to. If it's not there, then again, it's just you hit and hope you've backed a good Kickstarter that's not going to go tits up. And like I said, out of like 69 Kickstarters, I've only had one that's I've ever had to get a refund from. The rest, like there's a few that have taken a long time, and there's one that's taken a very long time, but at least it's not Cloud Imperium Games and you're waiting 10 years for Star Citizen.
True. Yeah, I think we agree on a lot of things about Kickstarter, but I don't think we necessarily come perfectly eye to eye on Kickstarter. No, I think we both agree that there needs to be greater accountability. I mean, in a way, Kickstarter have put forward this new thing where they have, I don't know if you've seen this, they did a big campaign about it, and I just raised my eye and went, okay. So the idea of it is there's a new set of rules, although I couldn't get access to the rules. I don't know if you have to be a creator to get access to them. But they're like, well, there's this new thing called like green block or green tick or angel something or other. It has a weird name on it. And it's like, look out for this tick. And if you see this tick, what that means is when you get a refund, then Kickstarter will waive its 5% or whatever it is fee. And they're like, oh, and this means if you see that, then this is a creator that has gone into this agreement, which will make sure they achieve blah, 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 blah. And when you look at it, it's always the massive companies that have this tick. So the ones that are realistically no danger to Kickstarter at all, like Cool Mini or not, they have the little green tick, which means that if you get a refund, you get the full refund, not just the Kickstarter's 5%.
Yeah.
Is that a step in the right direction?
Yeah,
or
well,
do you think
it's better than nothing. It's better than nothing.
Sure.
Because then, those companies could just say, you're not getting a refund, and you'd have to like it and lump it because it was there. So having at least some option is a good thing. Big companies do, shit happens as well. So, it's just, one of those things. So it's a step in the right direction.
Cool. So Kickstarter, buyer beware. Was it Imperator something or other? What's the Latin for it?
Oh, no, I have no idea. You should know this. Yeah. You're big into your Roman stuff.
Yeah, I should. It's Imperator or something or other.
What's the saying? I'll Google it.
Buyer beware. Buyer beware. It's a legal term in the UK. Let's say you bought your house, right? Let's say I'm selling you my house and it has subsidence. I don't need to tell you it has subsidence.
Caveat emptor.
There you go.
Caveat emptor. Yeah.
So yeah, basically this is a legal term in England, which means that even if you know that you have subsidence, you could still sell it to me, which is another thing that annoys me. It should be the person that is selling the house should be the one that has to pay for the survey. It should be included in all the costs, and then split up. Because otherwise, what happens is the first person wanting to view the property gets a survey. That's several £100s. Then they find out subsidence. Then the next person likes the house, gets a survey.
Yeah, it's a money making scheme, man. Like I paid for an alt for this one and stuff, and the guy could have told me that there was this was wrong and this was wrong and this one, but they didn't. He didn't tell me anything. I had to get the roof sorted. I had to get all kinds of things added to it, and which all came up in the survey and stuff. But this house is obviously being looked at loads of times, and I've no doubt numerous other surveys. And it's just
the biggest one though is we can't really complain in the UK. I mean, that one's not ideal, but the biggest one is in America, where you have to either pay a company to work out your taxes or work them out yourself. You send it to the government, and then they'll be like, "Oh, you did it wrong. We're fining you." It's
man.
like, how do you know I did it wrong? Oh, because you know how much I owe you. Why not just tell me and I'll pay that?
Yeah.
We get lobbied. That's not how it works here.
Yeah, I just don't the tax system in America is absolutely insane, man. It's just like how they have to do their own taxes, and the way the taxes work on goods as well. So it's like you go to America and you buy something.
You have to do the math.
You have to do
yourself.
the math. So it's not like this is 99p, but in America it's sort of $1, so it's 99 cents, but it's 99 cents plus the local tax rate and stuff, and then you've got to work it out depending on what state you're in.
The state tax rate, and then the county tax rate, and then the government.
I bought some t-shirts when I was in Vegas, and I was just like, oh, these are quite cheap, and then I was like, these aren't as cheap as I thought they were, because they added on like 2 sets of tax on top of it, and I was just like, right, okay. That's weird.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Just give me the price.
Yeah. Their argument is, I think the argument you generally get from Americans who are sort of very, I don't understand why they like their tax system, but it's like, well, there's different taxes for each state and stuff, so it's all different. It's like, well, why don't you just have a pricing in that state then? Why don't you have this is this state's tax, this is this state's tax, and this is what these are the prices? But they like to make things slightly more complicated.
The shop's going to change state. Just put the sticker price.
It's weird. That being said, you get a lot of Americans who come over here, and one of the things they always like is the fact that what you pay for is what it is worth and stuff. What it's worth is what you pay and stuff.
For them, it's if anything the opposite. They're going to get a 20% discount because they get the VAT back, because VAT is for this country, not for that country.
All right, yeah, okay.
So they actually get the money back, because I remember at Clark's when we would do it, and you had to fill in like a VAT form, and you'd be like, "Oh, can you not just do it at the airport and get all your? Why do you? Because you're gonna have to keep all of these receipts. Just take the receipt, and then at the airport, just do it in one go and get a nice big refund." But some people like to have the individual amounts. You're like, oh, madness. Right. Back to the summary.
Yep.
So, if you are a first-time person using Kickstarter, be aware that it is not a pre-order. They do not have to provide you the thing. They do not need to provide you a refund. Whether they should or not is regardless. It doesn't really matter. But basically, they don't need to. Your order will almost always be a year late. I mean, what is the fastest late thing you've had? I think the fastest late thing I've had is 4 months late, and I was like, "Oh, this is on time."
Yeah, like I think the only Bevan's Ghostel actually came early. Is the only time I've had a thing where it turned up before it was meant to and stuff. It turned up early, but generally every Kickstarter I've ever backed has been late, and you're looking 6 months plus at least. Most of the board games especially are generally over a year. I've had ones which have lasted 3 years. One that's verging on 6 years, I think, at the minute. So yeah.
What else was it? Communication. Be prepared that your person might not have the best communication after they've taken your money.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. If you get once a month, it will be good.
Yeah.
Good things though. You get to order stuff. You get to support people that can't afford to make it themselves. You normally get discounts. You normally get free stuff. So that's quite nice. Things we'd want from Kickstarter. Kickstarter, we'd love a bit more accountability from you. Yeah. I mean, you take 5% of everything. How about, or maybe even 7.5, whatever it is now. How about you send people to check on them?
Yep.
How about you provide updates if they can't provide updates? What you're doing with the, whatever it's called, the angel pledges, excellent, love it, going in the right direction. Let's get more companies on board. bit more vetting, please. We appreciate that there's hundreds and hundreds of Kickstarters, but every Kickstarter on there is making you money. So it'd be quite nice if you did a little bit more to protect the consumers.
Yeah.
In terms of messages to creators, we'd love it if communication is regular. Doesn't need to be every day. We're not wanting that, but once a month, choose a line and stick to it. Yeah. And if there's bad stuff going on, let us know.
Yeah, even if it's just the same thing.
Actually, we didn't talk about.
Yeah, if it's just the same thing, just say it. It's like shit's happened. Unfortunately, I appreciate this isn't helping, but I'm still here. We're going to get this sorted, and it's better than just going zip nothing at all, because that will just
something that's happened to me a few times. Have you had it where they've asked you for more money for shipping and stuff like that?
Yes.
And did you pay it?
They basically said I think one of them, I can't remember which one it was, but they said you can pay like, I can't even remember what it was, like $30 now, and we'll get it out to you straight away. Or you can wait an extra X amount of time and we'll pay for it and stuff. But, if you want it now, you can sort of pay for it and stuff.
Yeah, Room 17 did that with Meyermarsh. Basically, there was a problem with the printing, which meant that it was easier for them to just package the old board and the new board in the same box. Yeah. And they were like, look, if you pay the extra, we would really appreciate it. You will get your item either way, but the people that pay will get theirs first.
Yeah.
And I was like, yep, that's fine. Here, take the extra. Because it's always like a year and a bit late. By that point, I'm like that first edition.
That's new money. Yeah, that's new money.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah. That old money's gone. This is new money.
Exactly. Which is, it's the same with Pledge. Like, if it's an additional 100 and you've got add-ons, wait until the Pledge Manager. Don't ask me at the beginning about it. Ask me in the Pledge Manager all that. Really? Well, this is a different month. I'm not already 100 in. I can add the extra 50. So yeah, definitely do that. Anything else you would advise to Kickstarter, to new backers, or to the creators themselves?
No, just if you're like me and you can't control your nerdy urges for things like this, just be careful. It is kind of like an addiction sometimes, especially like pretty things. And as you can see from my background, it can become a bit too all-encompassing. So you do need, like anything that's sort of addictive, you do need to give yourself a break. As I appreciate.
So do you think Kickstarter should have do you think there should be some kind of tool that you at least can turn on in your settings where a little pop-up goes, hang on now, you've already spent £200 this month?
Yeah, I think so. I think that would be, it's like gambling awareness, but it's sort of
it's gratification.
Yeah,
that's what it is. It's instant gratification. Ironically, it's instant gratification clicking the button, even though it's still for gratification for getting it.
Yeah, exactly. So you just sort of, for me, again, it's all my own fault because I'm the one with zero self-control. But they are it's quite, because it's up on my Facebook all the time. They're advertising everywhere and stuff. They should maybe have some sort of warning about these things can be quite addictive, and you should watch yourself, or you'll end up penniless and living in the boxes of the stuff that you've bought.
To be fair, they are pretty big boxes.
Yeah, I could live in some of the big boxes I bought. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Matt, and thank you very much to viewers for watching this, as well as, of course, the patrons that help us cover the bills, because this isn't free. It does cost us £110 in hosting a year, so every little does help if you enjoyed this. Do let us know in the comments below if you have any warnings or advice or feedback based on Kickstarters. But I really enjoyed this topic. I feel it was an interesting topic, so thank you very much, Matt, and thank you all, and good night.
Bye.
Bye.